Welcome! Today we're making a warm and comforting tomato soup from scratch. It's simple, flavorful, and perfect for any day when you need a little extra coziness. Whether you want it chunky or smooth, with a touch of cream or straight-up classic, I've got you covered. Let's get started. Alright, let's get started with our tomato soup. First, grab 2 tablespoons of olive oil or butter, whichever you prefer for sautéing. Then chop up 1 large onion and mince 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to need 4 cups of ripe tomatoes. If you have fresh, chop them up or use 2 cans of whole peeled tomatoes. Now we'll add some extra flavor by chopping 1 large carrot and 1 celery stalk. You'll also need 4 cups of vegetable or chicken broth to build our base. Don't forget 1 tablespoon of tomato paste to intensify the tomato flavor. For balance, a teaspoon of sugar to mellow the acidity. Season with salt and pepper to taste, and add 1 teaspoon of dried basil or a handful of fresh basil if you have it. And for those who love a creamy finish, a 1/4 cup of heavy cream or coconut milk can be stirred in at the end. Now that we've got everything, let's start cooking. Alright, let's start by preparing our base. Heat up 2 tablespoons of olive oil or butter in a large pot over medium heat. While it's warming up, go ahead and chop your large onion into small, even pieces. Add it to the pot and let it sauté for about 5 to 7 minutes. Stir occasionally to make sure it softens and starts to turn golden. This is building that first layer of flavor. Now, grab 3 cloves of garlic and mince them finely. We'll add that to the pot and let it sauté for just a minute or 2. You'll know it's ready when the kitchen smells wonderfully fragrant. Next, we're going to bring in the tomatoes and extra veggies. Take your 4 cups of ripe tomatoes, or if you're using canned tomatoes, just pour them in with the juices and add them right into the pot. Chop 1 large carrot and 1 celery stalk and throw them in as well. These add a subtle sweetness and extra depth to the soup. Stir everything together and let it cook for about 5 minutes. You want the tomatoes to start breaking down and the carrot and celery to soften slightly. Keep an eye on it and give it a stir now and then. Now it's time to build our soup base. Stir in 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. This is going to concentrate that rich tomato flavor we want. Next, pour in 4 cups of vegetable or chicken broth, making sure everything is fully submerged. Add 1 teaspoon of sugar if your tomatoes are too acidic, and season the soup with a pinch of salt and pepper. Toss in 1 teaspoon of dried basil, or if you have fresh basil, just tear a handful of leaves and throw them in. Bring the soup to a gentle boil, then lower the heat and let it simmer for 20 to 25 minutes. The key here is to let the veggies soften completely and for all the flavors to meld together. Once your soup has simmered and all the veggies are nice and soft, it's time to blend it all together. Turn off the heat, and if you have an immersion blender, you can blend the soup directly in the pot until it's smooth. If you don't have one, no worries. Just carefully transfer the soup in batches to a regular blender. Blend until smooth and silky, then pour it back into the pot. If you prefer a bit of texture, only blend half the soup so that you still have some chunks of veggies. At this point, check the consistency. If it's too thick, you can add a little more broth. For those of you who like a creamy soup, here's where we add that luxurious touch. Stir in a 1/4 cup of heavy cream or coconut milk for a dairy-free option. Let it warm through for a couple of minutes, but be sure not to let it boil. Just a gentle simmer will do. The cream will give the soup a velvety finish and balance the acidity of the tomatoes. Taste the soup and adjust the seasoning with more salt and pepper if needed. Sometimes a small splash of balsamic vinegar can also bring out some nice depth here. And now for the final step. Let's serve up this delicious soup. Ladle it into bowls and, for a little extra flavor and presentation, garnish with fresh basil or parsley. If you want to be a bit fancy, you can drizzle some olive oil or swirl a little cream on top for a beautiful finish. Tomato soup pairs perfectly with a grilled cheese sandwich or crusty bread for dipping. And there you have it. Your comforting homemade tomato soup is ready to enjoy. Lastly, here are some quick tips to elevate your tomato soup. For deeper flavor, try roasting your tomatoes first. Just pop them in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes with a drizzle of olive oil. This adds a caramelized sweetness to your soup. If your soup turns out too acidic, You can balance it with a teaspoon of sugar or even a small splash of balsamic vinegar. For texture, blend only part of the soup if you like a chunkier consistency, or mash it up with a potato masher. And don't forget, if you're making a big batch, tomato soup freezes beautifully, so you'll have easy meals ready to go later. Enjoy your homemade tomato soup.